Hello, I'm Oliver, and this is Deep Cuts, a channel dedicated to music for lovers of music. So, as I said at the end of last week's episode, I asked on Twitter and Facebook if you guys wanted to see a best of 2017 so far video, and most of you said yes. There were a few of you that said no, but you guys were in the minority, so democracy, eh? This isn't going to be a long video, mainly because I've reviewed all of these albums that I'm talking about, so I am going to include timestamped links below so you can go to those original reviews and hear what I had to say originally. I will be saying a few different things about each one, and this is more of a way of sort of rounding everything up, rounding my thoughts up on the year so far, and the cream of the crop so far, in my opinion, on the records that have been released in 2017. As often I do, I've done a Spotify playlist, so you're welcome to go and find that. If you can find me at Deep Cuts Playlists on Spotify, and you'll find a couple of tracks from each of the albums that I'm going to talk about in this video. Shall we? Algiers, The Underside of Power. I actually only just spoke about this album in last week's video because my scheduling is shit. But Algiers' second album, The Underside of Power, is an absolute delight. The Atlanta band have created a dystopian gospel post-punk album, a record that can jump from abrasive to soulful in one fell swoop, and it's all led by those versatile vocals of Franklin James Fisher. The track Cleveland is a brilliant example of these disparate influences colliding on this release. Fisher's stretching his soulful voice across a metallic sequenced beat and swooping bass, and it's all backed up with this reverb-drenched choir. The band approach subjects intelligently across this album. You have the politically charged opening track Walk Like a Panther. You also have European modernist poetry alluded to on the triumphant title track. Unflinching is probably the word I would go with to describe this album. Often challenging, always rewarding. This album is brilliant. Idols, brutalism. This is another record that's unflinching in its power and its execution. Bristol-based punk band Idol's debut record, Brutalism, is a rousing piece of work from start to finish. You have them addressing British austerity politics on the track Mother, self-loathing and depression on 1049 Gotho, and then questioning views of pretension around emotion and art on the track Stendhal Syndrome. Vocalist Joe Talbot is one of the most exciting frontmen I've come across in a really long time. He expresses so much anger and vigour, bursting across these tracks like some sort of unconfined explosion. The band attack each track in an equally exciting way, bringing this statement of discontent and anger on our society of 2017 into the light in the most compelling way imaginable. If they carry on with this kind of commitment and urgency, they'll become household names, whether they want to or not. Somi, Petite Africa. I haven't stopped talking about Somi's fantastic record Petite Africa since I reviewed it back in March, and I'm not going to stop talking about it until every single person I speak to listens to this album and acknowledges its genius. American musician Somi has created my favourite record of 2017 so far. It's a document of Harlem's continuing gentrification and cultural diaspora that her African ancestors have experienced and are experiencing, and it's all brought together with this vibrant mix of African and jazz musical influences. Full of these beautiful little musical flourishes, Somi works alongside the musicians performing on these tracks with the utmost of care, and every track holds a real significance in the overall track listing. The album also contains my favourite song of the year so far, and it's a track called Holy Room. It's a track that we need right now in 2017. It's preaching love and forgiveness. It's a reminder that we're all on this earth, so maybe we should all just be preaching love instead of hate. And it's the way that she commands her vocals across this track, and the way that the instrumentation is delivered with a very soft, ethereal keyboard sound. It's a beautiful track, and it really brings together the crux of this album. It's very human, it's very honest, and it's very beautiful. Please listen to this album and tell everyone you know how good this is, because more people should be discussing this album, talking about it, and spreading the word of Somi. She's a genius. This is my favourite album of the year so far. Shu Shu, Forget. Experimental art rock group Shu Shu's 10th studio album straddles jagged electronics and glorious pop. It's audacious at almost every turn, and their bold approach to this record has just paid off in spades. Jamie Stewart's lead vocals are probably a little bit Marmite. I mean, they always have been ever since the band have been around, but to my mind, his fragile timbre going up against the dense production creates this brilliant juxtaposition of sounds and moods. If you listen to the chorus of Hey Choco Bananas, just to hear that buzzing bass synth crackle across his vocals, it's just so sumptuous. As many people have said, this is probably the most accessible Shu Shu have been so far throughout their career, but that inclusion of catchy hooks makes those moments of discordance even more exciting. The final track on the record is difficult to listen to, but it does remind us of Shu Shu's artistic intent. It's a monologue over dissonant metallic bells, and the monologue's delivered by genderqueer artist Vaginal Davis. The monologue was written as a poem by Stewart, apparently comprised of the first things that came into his head after he saw underage prostitute images, apparently, which is an uncomfortable subject matter anyway, and it makes the track very uncomfortable to listen to, even more so when you understand that's where the writing's coming from. But aside from the very uncomfortable close of this, is a very exciting album. I mean, Shu Shu are a fantastic band anyway. They've done so many exciting things, and this is just another step in their career. Haven't checked it out before, definitely go and check it out. Jlin, Black Origami. Indiana musician-producer Jlin has made a rhythmic beast of an album with Black Origami. It's blending dance, electronica, and footwork, so you have crashing percussion into one another and flexing around these expressive synthetic samples. This record is so riveting. Every single track on this album takes its time unfolding through your head, and Jlin's unafraid of adding components at a rate that makes you feel like your brain's going to implode. The track Holy Child is a collaboration with ambient musician William Basinski, and what she does is she takes that swirling ambient scape that he's known for so well and fuses it with fragmented vocal samples and sequenced beats. This is the densest album that you'll find this year so far, musically anyway, and if it connects with you on that first few listens and you continue on listening to it, you'll be finding more delights over and over every time you listen to it as it slowly reveals itself even further. A really delightful record. Wiley Go Father. The return of the godfather of grime, or Esky Boy. It was about as triumphant as we could have expected. Bowborn Wiley celebrating the genre that he in part created. In grime's relatively short life so far, it went from an aggressive hip-hop garage hybrid to UK pop domination and then back to its roots again. And Wiley was there at the beginning. He was very much one of the people that created the genre, and so he's almost on this album showing the new lot how it's done, but not in a sort of enfant terrible, I'm way better than you kind of way a la Dizzy Rascal, and I'll return to that in the July review roundup. But in a sort of way, he's opening his arms to his fellow collaborators and asking them to join him on this last victory lap. Devlin's seething delivery on Holy Grime matches Wiley's own approach, and elsewhere Skepta trades bars alongside grime staples Neum Generals and JME. It makes it so thrilling to listen to, and that's why it feels like such a celebration, because you have so many of these guys all on this record, like a collective, which is such a core part of grime's identity anyway. An album proud of its roots, and as a fan of the genre, a delight to experience this year. Slowdive. Slowdive. 90s shoegaze staple Slowdive returned in 2017, their first release since 1995's Pygmalion. There was a lot of anticipation behind this album because, let's be honest, a lot of reunions tend to be shit. Slowdive's 2017 self-titled is fantastic though. It's more of a return to that hazy dream pop of Souvlaki rather than the minimalist approach of Pygmalion, but it's as expertly constructed as both. The glittering atmosphere the band build across tracks like Slow-Mo, Sugar for the Pill, and No Longer Making Time is effortless. They achieve that weightless floating quality that the best kind of shoegaze has. As before their lengthy hiatus, Rachel Goswell and Neil Halstead apply their vocals in such a way that develops both counterpoint and harmony. Although I would have liked to have heard Rachel's vocals a little bit more on this release, they still really apply their vocals in an artful way. Listen to that juxtaposition on Don't Know Why. Wow. It's a great album. I really enjoyed this release, and it's great to see Slowdive back making great records. Kendrick Lamar, Damn. Well, it may have divided the music community, but to my mind, Kendrick's follow-up to Pimp a Butterfly was note perfect in its concept and its delivery. It's a more intimate record that clearly wants to be its own thing and not just a rehash of his previous albums. When I reviewed this back in April, I talked about how much I loved the paranoid colour seeping out of all of the tracks on this album, and you can hear it places like just before the beat drops, that earth-shaking drop you get in DNA, or those suspended piano chords on Element, or the blissed out beats of Lust. Kenny uses a more contemporary palette than the jazz influence of To Pimp a Butterfly, but somehow he does it and still sidesteps the trappings of overdone convention. His gift for narration is as impressive as it ever was. It's revealed on Fear as he navigates these three separate experiences of being scared across 8 minutes, and it's like the narrative opus of the record. It's another classic. In my opinion, this sits up there with To Pimp a Butterfly and Good Kid, Mad City. I think it's a really brilliant record. Arca. Venezuelan-born producer Alejandro Gersi's third Arca record takes the haunting quality of Shu Shu's album that I was speaking about earlier, and it increases that tenfold. It's an extraordinarily beautiful record, as spectral and spiky as it is unshakably moving. A little bit like Jlin's Black Origami record actually. Gersi's unafraid of allowing his musical visions to unfurl as slowly as they require. He has a patience with his songwriting, and opening track PL drifts from that lone falsetto that he has, to these dense washes of bass and synths, and he just creates this massive ascendant atmosphere. It's really astonishing to listen to, that opening track. There's just something about this record that truly moves me. It grabbed me really tight on my first listen, and each time I've returned to it, it's had exactly the same effect. Its tense musical vision just never dilutes, which is a very impressive feat in itself, because most albums, you listen to them quite a lot, you start to understand them, and they become very recognisable, and their impression is dulled a little bit, but I just haven't had that with this Arca record, and I've listened to it a hell of a lot. Tracks like Sin Rumba and the underwater clatter of Miel are just beautiful. Undoubtedly one of the best records to come out of 2017 so far. So those 9 records for me really do epitomise the cream of the crop in 2017 so far. I've thoroughly enjoyed all of these albums. They are great pieces of work. Perhaps not as a stacked year as something like, no, last year, 2016, was a really stacked year for releases and there were so many classics. Perhaps this year's not been quite the same. Having said that, the latter half of 2017, there are a bunch of releases that I'm excited for. So I don't know how many of these records might end up on the end of year list. I guess it depends on how good those records coming up in the latter half of the year are. But I guess we'll find out. Let me know in the comments section below what your thoughts are on these albums that I've spoken about, and also what your favourite albums of the year have been so far. Thanks for watching. See you soon.